I have an observation about what's been happening since the pandemic in terms of like the Moscow community. It seems to me that, and I'm a real proponent of sheltering in place. I've told everybody on my Facebook, I don't like to come out, I don't like to risk it, especially downtown. But it seems to me that since there's been more sheltering in place and reduced activity, there isn't this kind of buffer of everybody who, though they might disagree, being able to see each other's smiles and know that there's kind of still goodwill among this very forgiving community that I've found to be very accepting in the 4 years I have been here. And instead, what is highlighted, because we're all communicating, frankly, on Facebook and, and on Zoom, what's being highlighted is our differences. And I think that might be also a national phenomenon, that because the pandemic has caused us to rely on social media for our communities, the social media aspect of that and all the strange evil nuances that can come out of social media is taking over the positive element of community that can really only be actualized in real life setting. I've noticed that Moscow can be might be a microcosm of that, because people who, like, for example, I ran into the fellow from the Trinity Baptist Church in that Bible study. He was in his trunk and honked at me. I waved and I smiled. I had my mask on. He did not, and there were distinct bad vibes. He might not have known my vibe because he couldn't see me smile, for one thing. But I was smiling, and I just said, "Oh, Steve, good to see you. I gotta, I'm going to get some coffee." I was just on the fly, and he looked at me as though I had just rejected him. It was, I empathically, I got that vibe. And I'm just trying to think of what can we do to restore community to a fuller extent so that community isn't bound beneath the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
When we are walking in the Arboretum, I make a point of saying hello, much more than I ever did before, because especially, or downtown, if you have a mask on, whatever the smize or whatever they call it, it's hard for me to read a smile in somebody's eyes always. And yeah, I think that's one thing I've noticed when I say hello, people seem to always respond, and that's encouraging. And I think that another thing that I'm noticing, I think is a positive with the pandemic, our son, who's not long on talking about feelings, the first time, although he is a very feeling person, but he just doesn't put it into words, the first time he and his wife and children came, one of the first things he said was, "It is so good to see family." Yeah. And I talked to one of his friends last night who's a bachelor, and he's been struggling a little bit, and he said it's been so lonely because I live by myself and just getting out to see people. Mm-hmm. And he said, and I also know that people who live by themselves don't live as long. And I said, I think we're going to have to talk about maybe you meeting some nice young woman. But there's that loneliness is really, I can't imagine what it's like living in a care center right now. Yeah. But I think that being isolated for many people, not all people, has reminded them of we can't take for granted our relationships.
Right. Indeed.
Yes. Yeah, we've had a couple of friends who are on their own, and so we've tried, physically distancing in the garden or something and inviting them over, a glass of beer or wine or whatever, and just talking. And one person in particular is just thriving on it. She's just so lonely. She's a lovely little house near a park over here, but she just misses people, and she can't get to her family in California. So we've been doing a little bit of that, but now it's getting so lively over here with the virus and Pullman. We're backing off now and trying to fortunately, Karen hasn't thrown me out of the house yet,
I put out to Kenton's group, the Theology of Field group, the last time we met, that I would like to interact more on Zoom and or even on Facebook video, just have, one-to-one interactions with people whom I might have sat one-to-one across from in the cafe or someplace, because I live alone and I like to shelter in place. And what I've noticed is that, I don't know about you guys, but this meeting, I will feel uplifted afterwards. When I go to Theology Field afterwards, I feel warm inside. It really does something to break up the ennui of just being alone in the house all day. And I wouldn't characterize myself as a particularly lonely person, but I, feel the lack of the real life companionship. When was the last time I touched a human being? Over 5 months ago, and that is going to affect somebody. And I think these little Zoom chats and little Skype meetings, or however you do it, Google Hangouts, I just want to invite anybody who wants to talk to me and talk with each other. I don't see why not to do it. The only times I ever have a Zoom meeting is this one now, the Theology of Field, and the One Bible Project, and that's it. I chat with my friends who I've chatted with who live in Scotland, who I was chatting with before. So I just think it's an invitation. I just think that will enhance the sense of community if we all do things like that.
Yeah, the Zoom is really an amazing tool, I have to say. I mean, I used to be doing FaceTime and then WhatsApp and all that sort of stuff, but Zoom seems to be really terrific way of kind of. I mean, just seeing everybody's face here tonight is. I'm with you, Andy. It makes you feel good,
Yeah. You feel good inside. It's just.
And I have to say, because I'm not physically, except for my age, and gender, I'm not physically. I don't have problems that make me need to take extra care. I really appreciated our outdoor church services. Where we are distant, and those have been. I mean, I think you need both. And like we've had gatherings, small gatherings, just in our backyard, keeping distance. Those have been very nice too. So, a balance. And
I think you've got to. I think during these times you've got to make an effort to reach out and say, "Well, I wonder how that person's doing," or whatever. And just a simple phone call sometimes means an awful lot. Just. Okay, we're all in our bubbles, but we can still, say, "How's it going?" Or send a card or something. Little things.
Even we've been doing Zoom every Sunday for church, and we started doing in the summer once a month outdoor church at the park where we're all spaced and masked and everything. And it's very uplifting. And also, it seems like we reach out by telephone during this time. We're calling friends on the phone that, pretty often that we don't usually call, but just to hear their voices and hear how they're doing is uplifting to us. Yes. We've been very lucky in that our son and his family just moved to Moscow the last day of July. So our daughter and her family is here, and our son and his family. So we're all in the same germ group now.
Well, that's terrific.
Very split otherwise, but we do see each other. So
that's beautiful.
That's terrific.
And your son and his family are just a block away from where I am, right? They're in the Sullivan House at 610B, right?
Yeah. How do you know that?
Well, I'm 517B. And so
we party? Is that how you found out? Were you at the block party?
I missed the B Street block party, but I'll hope to meet them at the next function. So, but
yeah.
Our church meets Sunday evenings for an outdoor service where we sit on the lawn, and it's 6 to 8 feet apart and with lawn chairs or a blanket. And I went for the first time after only going to the Zoom, to the Facebook church services. And I think whoever said we need both is right, because when I went for the first time since the pandemic and actually saw the smiles and saw the people whom I have come to know and love, it made a difference than just doing the church on the Facebook. which in a certain way has its benefit because it's more comfortable in the sense that I don't have to get dressed. I don't have to scramble looking for my keys. I don't have to, you know, scramble to be there on time. So I'm sort of relaxed having my cup of coffee and doing the church service. But there's something about that meeting outside, and even for this group, maybe in the future we can do that too. It's just, there's something about it if we can strike the right balance. I just want to make sure that, I don't know, with this thing that we just did in the park that we've been doing on Thursdays, two of the people are in a relationship and living together, and so they can be close together. But I saw some people go by, and maybe I'm just paranoid or looking for it, but I think I got some pretty bad vibes, you know. And that's what I wish, well, I wish would not happen. I wish I could find a way to take whatever beam is in my eye out fully enough so I can see clearly to take the speck out of some of these other people's eyes, because I know they're wrong, but I also know that there's a beam in my eye, and I got to find it before I approach them. It has to be a prayerful thing, because I really would like to see unity in the community rather than this division that seems to instantiate the division that's in America today on the whole.
Here, here.